results. Okay, results is actually something that you use to answer the question. So similarly to, there are different types of questions, there are different types of research results. Okay, for example, one is what we call a specific solution. Number two, answer of judgment. Okay, answer is part of the result. Number three, report. Number four, procedure or technique. Number five, qualitative or descriptive model. Number six, analytic model. Number seven, notation or tool. Okay, now let us go one by one. I'll give you some brief example. Now, the first one is specific solution. Now, solution to application problem that shows use of computer software engineering or computer or software engineering principles. So maybe the design rather than the implementation. So basically, if you actually are in, for example, a software engineering whereby you develop an application, okay, something that you consider the result is not much of the application itself. It's not the codes, okay, whether it runs okay or not, but it may be the design. So the design is actually an important part of the result. For example, let's say that you are developing an information system. So one of the main, I think the important component of any information system is the database. And how do you, before you create your database, it is important to design the database correctly so that the data would be able to actually sit properly within the different entities of the system. So you can see that many students did not actually produce a database design. Okay, they just go and create, design, develop the database out of thin air. So basically, you can see that they are missing one important research result, which is the design. Because why? Because the process, why research is important, because we are going to learn something from what others have done. So for example, if for example a student created a very good application, okay, and show this to others, yeah, the most that people can acknowledge is that, yeah, your application or your system is very good, it runs well. But can they learn anything from this? No. The only way, one of the ways that they can learn from this, from the research process, is by looking into the design. They will be asking, what is the design? What is the design of the database, so that such data can be stored very well, very smooth, and so on. So basically, we need to look to the design. So the design, for example, is actually a very important artifacts or result, okay, important result of the research. That's why in the research objective, one of the recommended research objective is that to design a particular system and so on. Okay, so the design itself is actually a very important element. That is number one. The design is a result rather than the implementation. Okay, so you do not actually run the program, show, oh, and people say it is good. So that is not the result. Okay, it's just showing people that the program can run, but the result may be the design of the system that runs well. That is number one. Okay, another result is that careful analysis of a system or its development. Okay, this is including, when you say that careful analysis, this includes the use of several tools such as use case diagram, you have a unified modeling language, we have context diagram, we have flow charts, we have data flow diagrams, you know, we have all the documents related to the SRS and so on. So because that is part of the analysis. So when you actually analyze, and the analysis itself you put into a document, you represent using the proper way, so that is also considered as a result. So that's why in the objective, we have one objective is to identify the requirements. So that is the objective. So once, how do you identify the requirements? Of course, you do interviews and so on. So once you have that requirements, you actually put that in the use case diagram, in other diagrams, okay, that can represent the analysis, and that analysis actually on paper is considered a result. So that is a very important result, the analysis. Okay, number 3, running system that embodies a result. It may be the carrier of the result, or its implementation may illustrate a principle that can be applied elsewhere. So meaning that, for example, sometimes, there are certain model or concepts. Okay, the model may be abstract. The only way to show that the model works is by creating some system based on the model that can be executed, and we can see that it works, or the model works based on the output of the system. So this is when you say that the running system, the system that runs, embodies a result because of the model itself. Perhaps there are some model from Einstein. So how do you prove the model? Perhaps you want to build a system that can run something, generate data, and show the output. And if the output is based on what is predicted by the model, then it shows that the model is correct. So basically, this is sometimes, the running system can be a result. Okay, but not in all situations. Okay, not in all situations. Okay, now the second type of result is the answer or judgment. So it includes the specific analysis, evaluation, or comparison. Okay, now this is I'm just sharing with you. This is actually a process of benchmarking of 2 languages, C# and Java, based on some elements of, for example, we have this regex redux. You may not understand all this, spectral norm and so on. So these are some elements they used for benchmarking. So basically, if the research involve the process of benchmarking, and you get the result, okay, this is generated by the some tool. Now, this result, this actually data, this analysis is considered a result. Okay, this can be a result. Normally, when you do benchmarking and so on. Okay, this is answer or judgment. So we can see here, meaning that in terms of speed, so meaning that C# is faster than Java in this particular benchmarking process. Okay, number 3 is reports. Okay, sometimes when you do reports, then when you do research, there is you generate some reports. Okay, you do analysis using statistical techniques and so on, and from there you generate reports, and this report is also considered a result. So I think this is very common to many UniKL students. So they always give a graph for the result, but just to understand that the report is not the only result that you can present. Okay, okay, so this is actually one thing. Okay, now the next research result is a procedure or technique. Okay, now what it means is that it is a new or better way to do some tasks, such as design, implementation, measurement, evaluation, selection from alternatives. So meaning that how to do things. So if your research can come up with how to do things in a new way or in a better way, okay, then that can be considered as a result, not just a process. Okay, now this includes operational techniques for implementation, representation, management, and analysis. but not advice or guidelines. So meaning that if you come up from your research a guideline or advice, something to do, then that we do not consider as a result, because I think that guideline is just better you want to follow or you don't want to follow, it's up to you. So the guideline is not strong enough to be considered a result. Okay, for example, that now this is I'm sharing, this is part of my PhD research a long time ago. So basically now this particular example is that we want to measure the level of performance of specific IT elements with regard to the implementation of IT in education. Okay, now in the traditional way of measurement is that you do a survey, you do what we call a Likert scale. Likert scale is something that we will cover later on. You give a scale of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, meaning 1 is very disagree, so 5 is strongly agree, so sort of like something like that. And basically they will ask, okay, now what about the network specification in this particular university? So is it 1, 2, 3 or 4 or 5? So basically that is the traditional way of doing things. So but in my research back then, so I found that okay, that particular technique, there are lots of weaknesses. So basically what we did was the research proposed a new technique of measure how to get feedback from the levels of performance, okay, of that particular industry in a specific element such as network, internet bandwidth, and so on. So basically we come up with a new measurement technique here. This is called academic computing rubric to replace the Likert scale. Now this is a new measurement technique, something new, okay, new way to measure. And basically it actually later on it gives a much better consistent result compared to using a Likert scale. So basically because that is the case, this particular procedure, new procedure, is considered a result because it is considered an outcome of the research, not just the output. The technique is also something that you can actually achieve from a research. Okay, next we have what we call a qualitative or descriptive model. Okay, this is normally this is a postgraduate research level. So part of it is considered is among it is structure or taxonomy for a problem area, architectural style, framework or design pattern, non-formal domain analysis, well-grounded checklist, well-argued informal generalizations, guidance for integrating other results. Okay, these are all descriptive or qualitative model. So what I'm sharing here, this is one model that I did for my PhD, which is called the academic computing value chain model. So this is also considered a descriptive model that represents in terms of the different support and primary activities in the use of ICT in academic institutions. So this is also considered a result for me back then. Okay, now another type of research result is what we call analytical model. So this is actually a structural model precise enough to support formal analysis or automatic manipulation. So basically in general, most what we can say that all analytical model is based on mathematics. In mathematics, so it's lots of statistical and mathematical formulation within any analytical model. Okay, another form is what we call a notation or tool. This is also considered a result. Okay, so basically that's it for this lesson. Okay, so basically the purpose of this particular session is just to give a very good idea about the difference between scientific research and engineering research, and to highlight the importance of research questions. And we have introduced the different types of research questions that can be applicable to both scientific and also engineering research, and we give examples based on IT. And the last part was the answers, or the results, what can be considered as result in such a research.